Greetings and citations, everyone. We seem to know exactly where we're headed next, and it appears to be none other than K'aresh. This making our third planet to ever visit. The first two being Outland and Argus. Unless you want to get technical and list off all of those planets we went to during those Legion invasions. Or Ultimate Draenor. Or Ulunara. But those are all technicalities, it's fine. Regardless, it's quite exciting that we'll be venturing forth to the shattered world of K'aresh, home world of the Ethereals, which seems to be in a far worse state than both Outland or Argus. Funny how most of the planets outside of Azeroth always seem quite broken by comparison. Now, before I continue, there is a little footnote that I forgot to put into the video and the script, so I'm just going to say that right now. There is a small, lingering chance that we do not go to K'aresh next, and it could very well be the Heronir Zone, the Rootlands, or the Cradle. Don't know if that's actually going to turn out. It could also be that we go to K'aresh and the Rootlands, but we'll just have to see. But let's continue on with the original script and video. Now, the reason for its current status is due to the events of Dimensius, a Void Lord, visiting said planet and apparently devouring most of it. The Harbinger, Xal'atath, may have also had played a part in summoning him there, though she didn't go by that title back then. Though there have been survivors looming about in the Ethereals, whom we've seen throughout the Great Dark Beyond on other planets too. In fact, the very planets I had just listed before mostly had Ethereals on them. This could be a great way to explore how the Ethereals lost their physical forms, which currently, if not changed, was due to them attempting to ward off the Void with their own arcane-like devices, leading to their physical forms' destruction, and leading them to also wrapping themselves in those bandages that we see them in. We could also dive into the many cartels and other groups that we've encountered as well, akin to how we worked alongside the many various cartels of the Undermine. The various cartels of the Ethereals are namely the Consortium, Protectorate, Ethereum, Shadowguard, and Netherguard. Which, while the Consortium and the Protectorate have mainly been our allies in opposing the other far more nefarious and darkly turned cartels, it's possible we could see the Ethereum, Shadowguard, and even maybe the Netherguard as allies. If organizations like the Black Fuse, or now known as the Dark Fuse, can turn a new leaf, again, using the cartels of the Undermine as a good example of what could await us, it's possible that these other darker Ethereals that I had mentioned could also turn a new leaf. After all, going into this, it would appear that the Phase Thief Azir, whom is a Void Ethereal, apparently, opposed Xal'atath and yoinks the Darkheart for his own interests, though I speculate Azir isn't the boss of this operation, especially given his title, which isn't of royalty, like Nexus Prince or Nexus Princess, and seems to be far more like a lackey than a full-on boss or leader. As we saw the Nexus Princess and assassin Ka'Veza speak to an unknown boss or voice, where her task was to pretend to be an ally to both Xal'atath and Queen Ansarak. Ka'Veza, much like Azir, is a Void Ethereal too. We fought her, but she would leave the kill to us and would teleport away, meaning there is a most certainly somebody out there in opposition to Xal'atath who is likely an Ethereal or at least tied to them. We speculated some time ago that Locus-Walker may very well be the ringleader of this group. After all, he's the master of the Void, and it would make sense for somebody like him to have his own followers. He's also a Void Ethereal himself and has a history against Xal'atath, seemingly. While he has allied with us in the past, it might have been for his own interest or his own people's interests, and I think it would make a great deal of sense for Locus-Walker to work in the shadows and have his own agents, in their own way, oppose Xal'atath and steal the Darkheart. What end? Well, we'll get to shortly. Another Void Ethereal who very well might be behind this operation is Shadreen, who's watched over us a great deal within the Brawlers Guild and the outfit competition of the Trial of Style, both testing us and seeing what we're made of, though she may very well also be an ally of Locus-Walker, making her a follower of him, maybe, or something else. Alternatively, Dementius could also be behind this theft too, though I think it would be a bit odd for him to second-guess his harbinger, Xal'atath. It would also be odd for the Void Lord to use Ethereals in this way. Personally, I think while Dementius could prove to be a threat that we deal with in some way on K'aresh, I don't think he's behind the stealing of the Dark Heart, and I don't think he would use the Ethereals to do this either. Besides the obvious of ensuring Xal'atath is without her terrifyingly powerful relic, which was seemingly made by an Eltharion in the past, and then re-empowered by Rootacron using Galakrond's own essence and power, why did the Ethereals yoink the relic and immediately transport it to the ruins of K'aresh? I have a few ideas as to why they would do this. Not only does it take away Xal'atath's ace in the hole, which she seems to need for her own plans rather clearly, but I think that the Ethereals intend to somehow use it to either restore K'aresh, destroy Dementius, or maybe even use it on Xal'atath, who seemingly had a history in the corruption or breaking of their world. As far as we know, the Dark Heart is capable of absorbing any kind of energy or power, be it death, light, arcane, void, or otherwise, and then firing that power back 10 times over. It doesn't seem like it would be used to fix anything. But at the same time, K'aresh was mostly destroyed by the void. Maybe by absorbing the energy circulating the planet, it could lead to them restoring it somehow. Or maybe they'll be able to tamper with the Dark Heart and instead of it only consuming power, it can be reversed and it can give back power. We are talking about the relic that consumed the energy of Galakrond, Dalaran, and parts of Beledar. If I was a betting man, which thank goodness I'm not, I'd bet that they would use the Dark Heart to restore their world soul and planet. And how? Well, there is a rather nice and powerful world soul in Azeroth, and maybe even the most powerful world soul in all the cosmos. So maybe they intend to use the Dark Heart to try and yoink over our own world soul and put it into K'aresh to fix it, or something similar. Another possibility is that they're going to use the Dark Heart to lure Xal'atath to them, either in trying to destroy the Harbinger and her Dark Master, or they want to make a bargain with her. It would probably be safer to destroy the witch, but she may also know how to fix their broken world, which they may barter the Dark Heart in exchange for maybe. A deal I don't think would end well for them either way. Regardless, I do think the Ethereals will take it a step too far with the Dark Heart in some way, and we'll have to go to K'aresh to deal with them. Hopefully with the aid of Illyria, Anduin, Thrall, Jaina, and perhaps even Turalyon or others. If we are also traveling within space, it does make sense to use the Vindicar, which was purposely made to traverse the stars when we need to go to Argus. And right now, outside of the Fellhammer and maybe a Goblin Rocket, wouldn't place bets on that one either, it's our current and only means to travel in space without portals. Though I'll forever wonder why the heck we never used the Naru's prison ship. It's just sitting there in Netherstorm. Like, that could hold an entire army there. Oh well. Alternatively, Outland does have a great deal of Ethereals on there, and we could consort with the Consortium on getting a gateway to their homeworld somehow. We have seen the Ethereals be beamed down from K'aresh to Outland, so the reverse could be very possible too. Honestly, I'm a little more fascinated by how the Ethereals travel from place to place. I assume it's not through ships, but rather through portals and those waygates that we've seen before. It also could be as easy as just talking or asking Locus-Walker, who's more familiar with his own world, and he provides the means to travel there. Another strange and unlikely, but not impossible alliance could even be with Xal'atath. Now, would we ever work with the woman who wants to take over the world with the Void? I mean, we have done it before, but that was when she wasn't destroying cities or leaving us to die with old gods. But she could spill the beans on how the Ethereals intend to take everything from her and from us, and how vital it is for us that we all work together in stopping them. This could add an interesting detail of us being forced to work with her to save our world, and what can I say? I like it when we work with the villains, even if it's clear they're gonna stab us in the back shortly afterwards. It could even be a nice little moment or two of explaining Xal'atath's motivations and why she's like the way she is and how she is the way she is. I mean, I personally am still of the opinion that she was not always like this, of course, but I think she may have been a mortal once, kind of like Illyria, kind of like Locus-Walker. She may very well, in my opinion, be the first mortal to ever make an alliance with the Void, or an allegiance to the Void, either way. And it could also add a whole extra wave of complication and complexities for a cast to be forced to work with her and oppose Locus-Walker, who was once our ally. Again, I love the detail from Locus-Walker, who again, might be behind this, and also other Ethereals perspectives, that they're trying to fix their world that they lost, and that they deserve a home that was robbed from them by Xal'atath, or Dimensius, or Xal'atath and Dimensius. How painful would it be that they said that while Xal'atath stands beside us, smiling? Oof. Of course, they'd be taking things too far by doing the same to our own worlds, but it would add a sad layer on top of everything if Xal'atath was working with us. And you know full well by the end of it that once the Ethereals drop the Dark Heart, she's gonna take that thing and she's gonna take it back with her to do her thing that she needs to do to spring forth that Void army from the Sunwell to enact Midnight. Unless we've been misled and it's not Xal'atath who brings on that doom, it's somebody else. Alright, now for the biz that we've talked about before. Going to K'aresh does help us a bit on trying to figure out who exactly could be the endgame villain for War Within. But it doesn't make things remotely easier either. As before, it could be Locus-Walker, who is one of the most well-known Ethereals right now, and also one of the most shady and shifty ones. Of course, many like him, and many still see him as good, and as a good mentor, and a hero possibly. So it could be somebody else too. But I also think a new Ethereal villain might not hit as hard as well. While I do like Locus-Walker, I don't trust him, and have my money that he might be our main baddie. Dimensius, Xal'atath's boss, and a Void Lord who's managed to appear in the physical realm somehow, would make a great deal of sense for us to face in the very world that he shattered long ago. It would also leave Xal'atath bossless, and probably propel her as the new Void Gal in charge, if we get rid of her boss, which could even be a part of her own plans. Or it's just a lemon out of lemonade situation for her. It would be curious to see her be more upset or devastated over her boss's demise. We're so used to villains backstabbing each other, and her especially, so it'd be a rare moment or two where we could see sorrow from her maybe. And the most obvious of obvious is Xal'atath herself, who we know isn't going to die anytime soon anyways. As always, it could be that we defeat her or throw her out of her current body, which is just a random Void Elf anyways, and that she goes on to possess a new form or body in Illyria, which has been my own running theory for the longest time now, since Xal'atath has expressed so much interest in Illyria. And it could add to the importance and stress for Midnight on just how dark things have gotten, and adds a new loss and grit to our situation. Illyria, forced to watch from the inside as Xal'atath, as we'll call her, brings doom to her homeland and friends. We could also have an Argus situation, where we fight K'aresh itself in the end. But I don't really want to fight another Lost Titan, and I just kind of find it really underwhelming, even though I shouldn't, it's a Titan, to not actually fight a villain that's relevant. Unless they give K'aresh a character, unlike they did with Argus, then maybe a K'aresh World Soul boss fight could work, if it's the overarching villain of that part of that saga. I'm not saying it couldn't work, I just think there's far more interesting villains out there who could fit the bill better. Lastly, I want to touch on something that would be amazing to have and see. The Ethereal allied or playable race. Now, I want to stress to you, I'm 50-50 on this ever happening. Allied races are such a coin toss on happening now. One moment, I'm certain they're going to be playable, the next, I don't think they're ever going to be playable. It's a tough road, and we've been on it before. We've been here time and time again, and while my dream of being a Mok'Nathal or Broken will always be there, it's important to prep yourself for them never going to happen or not happening anytime soon. And that's the same with the Ethereals. What? Never say never, and the idea that the Ethereals could be playable, I think could be great, and even likely now that we have a female rig for them too. Which does help its case to be playable a little bit more. For me personally, I love the idea of two different kinds of cartels joining the ranks of the Alliance and the Horde, rather than just Ethereals in general being neutral, fully like the Earthen were. I'm personally not a fan of the whole neutral allied race just being fully neutral and just joining a side randomly. I like it when it's more divided. More like the Hwaugen and Hwaushi Pandaren, or even the Drak'Vir and their two Wurns. The Horde could get the more arcane-based consortium, who we've had dealings with on both Outland, and I guess technically Draenor, although it's mostly just Outland. Their own leader, Nexus Prince Haramad, to lead them directly into the Horde's ranks. I apologize if I butcher Haramad's name. If that's not Haramad, I'm sorry. Well, the Alliance could be the more void-based Shadow Guard or Nether Guard or a new cartel, since they've already had dealings with them thanks to Locus-Walker and the Void Elves, who, if Locus-Walker survives, or is never a villain in the first place, could lead the Alliance Ethereals, or maybe even Nexus Princess Kaivessa. If she also survives, could make a good fit too. I just like the idea of there being more variety per the factions, and just different leaders and different varieties in general. They could still allow the players to make their Ethereals a bit more void or a bit more arcane-like in the customizations too. While researching for this video, they did a surprising thing that I never noticed, of having different colors per cartel or per faction for the Ethereals, and I'd love to see that for which side they'd represent, or at least give that as an option. Obviously, we'd have a starting zone in K'aresh, or maybe even in Outlands, which could reflect the changes done to it by the Dark Heart, or whatever happens to it. But again, there's a very hard chance Ethereals might not happen, and it'd be extremely unfortunate, but it's most certainly not the first time we've been led astray, and it's not likely to be the last either, on what was going to be playable. Anyways, those were my overall thoughts on us going to K'aresh. What are your predictions, or your own thoughts on the Ethereal's homeworld? Do you think Locus-Walker will turn out to be a baddie like we've been predicting, or do you think it'll be somebody else? Do you think playable Ethereals are on their way? I'd very much like to know your own thoughts down below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to hear from me and my community, feel free to join us in our Discord. Or, if you like me enough, please support me on my Patreon like these amazing folks here. You can also hit that join button too. All helps in keeping this channel alive and well. But until next time, my friends,